and welcome to the New World Review. I'm Grand Line Waifu and I'm here to be very emotionally invested in characters that really meant nothing to me less than a week ago. Don't make Eliza sad. Make sure you like and subscribe and let's get into the meaty story. Episode 56. Wait, who's she? That lady in the opening scenes. Oh, hang on. Ha! It's Kurapika. Wow, he looks good in an icy blonde. There were a lot of revelations this episode on both sides. There's a lot to be said for the perspectives we get to sit in. The setup of Basho's death was very clear. In fact, I signaled it last episode or the episode before. They wanted us to care about Basho. They wanted it to be meaningful. I think that's the right name. I don't know. They wanted it to be meaningful. So let's take a look at that first because we were sort of manipulated into seeing him a different way and caring about him very quickly. Hunter x Hunter has a few different mechanisms for giving us insight into characters, and it's always interesting which ones they choose. Rather than using the isolation technique they've used in the past where a character enters a dark, single-coloured realm inside their minds, in this case they decided to humanise Basho by having him speak his thoughts to his hounds. The softness and innocence of that, especially as he looked for jobs that would fit all of them rather than just himself and Eliza, lent itself to a sense of martyrdom when he was killed. He released the dogs so they wouldn't have to see what happened, so they wouldn't be subjected to the situation he could see himself getting into, and all of those things gave his death a really impressive amount of importance. And of course, Eliza knowing added to that impact. Giving her a frame or two of awareness that something had happened showed us just how much they did actually care for each other and put a value on his death, which doesn't happen often in this show. Uvogan dying was one such valued death, and look where it led. Basho's death may not lead to an outcome as narratively impactful, but compared to all the mafia security that were killed a few episodes ago to classical music, we're not spared the emotional importance of this moment, which wouldn't have been important at all had there not been a link between Basho and Eliza and between Basho and his dogs, who, as seen in the hotel room, genuinely cared for him. So, rest in pieces, Basho. Your death had more impact than your life, unfortunately, but at least we got to experience it with you. In our next perspective, we got Melody back in our story again. What I don't understand, that I really want to, is why Melody has never been on any of the face pages we've had for the Nostrad family security. Neither Melody nor Kurapika have featured. Are they the only hunters? Who or what is protecting them if not? Will that ever be explained? Melody is seeing Kurapika's behavior, and despite not knowing him for that long, I guess, have any of them known any of the others for that long? Not really. She has a good indication of what is normal for him and what's not. She's hugely insightful, our friend Melody, which I guess comes from the combination of knowing the sound of people's bodies and hearts and minds, and something that I suspect is uniquely hers. She hooked onto Kurapika in an instant, and I keep wondering whether that's by design for her. Obviously, it's by design in the narrative. Is it just that she wants friends, or is it more? She's very often the steadying hand on Kurapika's arm, but why? Nobunaga went on a journey today. For the first time we saw him use his sword, actually probably not the first time, but the first time we saw him essentially lose his cool in an extreme enough way to kill someone. Pakunoda also went on a journey, as did them today's. Sorry, I can't help it, they're so obviously there. I just don't understand the physics of them. Anyway, it was great to see that she has more than one ability. I wonder whether her memory bomb would have a mundane effect on a normal person. We saw Uvogan get shot and not care. Is it the same for them? Were they using Nen at the time to prevent the shot actually hurting them? That final shot of Nobunaga, the art involved in that was frankly beautiful and feels like it was a redraw of literally the manga ending. There are some frames that come up in this show that make it feel more like manga than anime, and I really like how they choose those frames and when. Something I found really fascinating and really enjoyed getting insight into was Chrollo's appraisal of Gon. The time he took to look at Gon suggests to me that he actually sees why Nobunaga wanted Gon to join the Phantom Troop. How do I know that's something he actually considered? He answered the question. He answered the question he didn't need to answer, and he took the time to think about the response, as though it might be particularly important for a future sales pitch. Which it might. I can't imagine Gon deciding to join the Phantom Troop, but at the same time, I could kind of actually imagine him joining the Phantom Troop to give Kurapika the chance to attack. Knowing that Pakunoda is away means that Kurapika is safe for a short time, and that's why Gon revealed himself. He had to. I'm excited to see where this leads, because Nobunaga has entirely missed out on all the fun of catching his mortal enemy, as well as the kid he forgot he wanted to recruit to the troop. Which seems odd still, actually. Meanwhile, Leorio's missing out on everything because he's stuck in traffic. Womp womp. Are we surprised? No, this team needed a driver and he's the perfect person. Oh, and one more thing before we move on to the next episode. I have never heard anything more hardcore in my life than, if we get closer, they might sense my animosity. Oh my god, Kurapika. So intense. Episode 57. God, I love a good heist, which is exactly what this episode was. A heist movie, but in 20 minutes, and an anime with characters we're already attached to. At least, that's the beginning of the situation. Why is it that Killua continues to be the perspective of level-headed that we go with? What is it about him that we as an audience are supposed to think, yes, this guy here, this dude, my dude, is the voice of reason. He was an assassin, so he must have some pretty good executive function, though brother seems to have hypnotized him with some kind of permanent effect. One might call it trauma. So he's compromised. But of the perspectives, he's the least compromised, I guess, since we can't count on Gon or Leorio to be practical enough to think through a plan that quickly. So fine, yes. On balance, Killua's the best option for reasoning these things through and making quick choices. Also, I guess I should congratulate Gon on managing to get their attention for a second, though he didn't come up with the plan or in fact complete the plan. He just sort of stumbled around and got in the way enough to solve the problem, which is what he does best. Good job, Kurapika, for putting the right person in the way. Sometimes I love my notes. Let me read some for you. Strong boobs. Yes, in the moment that I typed that, I'd forgotten the name Pakunoda and could only remember her by her defining feature. I mean, she has two defining features, neither of which are as pronounced in the flashback, I might add. Her nose and her boobs are both sort of hidden at that point. I don't know how they're hidden. You can't hide a nose. A nose is just not as big. Does your nose really grow that much after puberty? We'll talk more about that later, but Pakunoda is either really strong or these two teenagers are really, really light. Returning to the teenagers for a moment, something I've noticed several times that I haven't commented on is their seeming ability to share information without anyone else hearing them. Either they're having the same thought simultaneously, which I'm incredibly impressed about, or something else is happening. I really don't know. It feels like they have a shared voice in those moments, and I'm always a bit confused by it when it happens. Why not just stick with Killua's voice? I suppose because we need to know that Gon's also having the thought, but why not in that time split the screen or something? Why does it look so specifically like they're sharing a conversation? They're not looking at each other or having any contact, and we don't have any precedent for them having a shared language, so I don't really understand the intention behind the technique. Anyway, just something I've been thinking about for a while. You know, I often underestimate Leorio's intelligence because his behaviour's so loud and brash, but he's training to be a doctor, so he has to be at least capable for that. Which puts him at probably the most intelligent member of the party in pure intelligence. Doesn't mean he's wise, but he's starting to get the idea that he looks older working for him, and that's great. A plan is only as good as its weakest member, and at this point in the game, I think the weakest member is actually probably Kurapika, whose passion and animosity have in fact made clear a weakness even without Chrollo knowing the rest of the, weakness situation that he shared with the rest of the group. Speaking of Chrollo, poor thing. His team are going to do what he says because he's cared for them too well. They're too well bonded and care too much about each other. They cared about Uvogin and Pakunoda put her finger on it. He died because he wanted to protect the others. He saw that as worth it. Chrollo managed to terrify Melody with his conviction that the spider is what matters, not him, which makes him seem like a freedom fighter or martyr more than a leader. The problem is that the ideal he holds falls by the wayside for half the group because they care about him as a person and do things for him, not just because he's the boss, but because he's a friend and carer. Returning time and time again to the importance of relationships and revenge in this series, the fracture in the way the spider works and the breaking of that web is fascinating. They're all loyal, just in vastly different ways, and I really appreciate the delicacy of how that works. We know Nobunaga's passionate, so of course he'll fall on the emotional side of things, but I was surprised to find that vacuum woman did too. The three guys made sense too, actually. We've had less screen time with them to date, and this series tends to put more focus on those who are passionate. The characters we want to see, or that they think we want to see, are deeply passionate in their convictions. It's not an incorrect assumption to make either. Schmick and Schmarmy, I can't remember his name, the guy that picks up the phone first, he got screen time because he tried to control the conversation and had to fall back on hilarious apologies. Chrollo is a beautiful character simply because he doesn't look as though he's exhibiting external passion, but there is passion in every movement he makes and every word he says. His passion is shown through those words and actions rather than in facial expression, which is why he's a great exception to what's happening. In fact, he's quite the opposite to Hisoka, who can't keep his tongue in his mouth or his swing out of his step. I had to watch the end of this episode twice on that note because I didn't understand really what was happening in Hisoka's mind. He wants to fight Chrollo but not kill him? Does Hisoka think he could take on Chrollo? I really don't understand the situation there. I mean, we know Hisoka likes to fight people, but I'm surprised he wants to fight the boss but not kill the boss? Does he want to fight Gon but not kill Gon? I thought he wanted to kill Gon. Or was there a translation error somewhere? I didn't really get it. Maybe I will next episode. I'm not willing to end on that note because it feels really uncertain, so I will end on this one. Misha, or whatever her name is, has incredible abs and I want them. Abs that can trap a hand? Gimme. I want that power. And on that note, we shall leave this episode because that's it from me. If you enjoyed this content and you want more, feel free to hit the like, dislike, and or subscribe buttons. You can also click here, 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 probably here, somewhere over here, and you can tap something else for something magical to happen while I go get candy, because who am I kidding? Hardcore fitness ain't me. Have a great day. Bye.